In the vast, sprawling theater of World War II's Eastern Front, the conflict was not just fought in colossal tank battles or sprawling city sieges. It was also a war of logistics, a relentless struggle over supply lines, where a single bridge could hold more strategic value than an entire division. As the German war machine rolled eastward in 1941, its blitzkrieg tactics depended entirely on speed and momentum. Tanks, troops, and supplies all needed to cross the countless rivers and ravines of Eastern Europe, and bridges were the arteries that kept this invasion alive. Taking a bridge intact was a top priority for German forward units. It meant a faster advance, less time wasted, and maintaining pressure on the retreating Soviet forces. For the Germans, a captured bridge was a symbol of their unstoppable progress, a secure foothold on their path to victory. But they soon learned that what seemed like a secure asset could become their most terrifying liability. The soldiers tasked with turning this German advantage into a nightmare were the Soviet Sappers. These weren't just engineers, they were masters of demolition, sabotage, and deception, often working behind enemy lines with limited resources and under immense pressure. Their missions were nothing short of suicidal. Their job was to ensure that the infrastructure the Germans so desperately needed would either be denied to them or, even better, turned into a deadly trap. When a direct demolition wasn't possible before a retreat, the Sappers' ingenuity truly shone. They became ghosts in the German rear, their presence felt only through the sudden, catastrophic disruption they caused. They understood a fundamental truth of this war. To stop the blitzkrieg, you had to break its momentum. You had to cut its supply lines, starve its panzers of fuel, and sow chaos and fear where the Germans felt safest. And their primary targets were the bridges. The methods employed by these sappers were as varied as they were brilliant. One of their most devastating tactics involved the Leduxian mines. Imagine this. German forces capture a crucial railway bridge, inspect it thoroughly, and declare it safe. Days, or even weeks later, just as a heavily laden German supply train is rumbling across, the bridge erupts in a massive explosion. The train, its precious cargo of fuel, ammunition, and food, plummets into the river below. The Germans are left stunned, their carefully planned logistics in tatters. How was this possible? The sappers had planted specialized mines, sometimes disguised as coal, which were then mixed into the coal supplies destined for German locomotives. When an unsuspecting German crew shoveled the booby-trapped coal into the train's firebox, it would trigger a devastating explosion at the most vulnerable point of its journey, right in the middle of a bridge. Another favored technique was the surprise mine. Sappers would plant explosives deep within the bridge's structure inside, concrete pillars or steel supports long. Before the Germans arrived, the detonators were often incredibly sophisticated for their time. Some were linked to a simple, hidden wire that a sapper, hiding in the reeds of the riverbank, would pull at the perfect moment. Others were even more insidious. There were accounts of mines being set with acid-filled glass vials that would slowly eat through a restraining wire, triggering the explosion after a predetermined time. This meant sappers could set their traps and be miles away when they went off, leaving the Germans with no one to blame but their own bad luck. The psychological impact was immense. Every bridge became a source of paranoia. German engineers would spend countless hours sweeping and inspecting structures that Soviet sappers had already declared a lost cause. One of the most famous examples of this strategic sabotage occurred during the brutal battles for the Caucasus region. The Germans were desperate to seize the rich oil fields, and their advance depended on a series of key bridges. Soviet sapper units were tasked with a seemingly impossible mission: to mine and destroy these bridges, even as German troops swarmed the area. In one legendary operation, a small team of sappers, disguised as local laborers, worked 4 days under the very noses of German guards. They used hand drills, muffled with rags, to bore holes into the bridge's supports, packing them with explosives. They timed their detonation perfectly, not when the bridge was empty, but when a German armored column was halfway across. The resulting carnage was horrific. Tanks and armored vehicles were sent tumbling into the gorge below, blocking the German advance for weeks and giving Soviet forces critical time to regroup and defend the oil fields. This wasn't just destroying a bridge, it was a tactical masterpiece that directly influenced the outcome of a major campaign. The brilliance of these sappers also extended to water-based operations. They developed so-called floating mines, which were designed to drift downstream and collide with the piers of a pontoon bridge or a permanent structure. These mines were often camouflaged to look like logs or other river debris. German patrols would scan the water's surface, seeing nothing out of the ordinary, unaware that a kilogram of high explosive was silently floating toward their critical crossing point. One particularly cunning device was a mine attached to an anchor with a propeller mechanism. As the river current turned the propeller, it would slowly unscrew a bolt, eventually releasing the mine to float to the surface and strike its target hours or even days later. The level of mechanical and psychological warfare was astonishing. It forced the Germans to dedicate significant manpower, not just to guarding bridges, but to constantly patrolling the rivers upstream. The cumulative effect of these thousands of individual acts of bravery and sabotage was devastating to the German war effort. It wasn't just about the destroyed material, the lost tanks, or the derailed trains. It was the crippling blow to logistics and morale. A German division, already stretched thin on the endless front, could be rendered combatant effective simply because a single bridge was blown 100 kilometers behind them, cutting off their fuel, ammunition, and reinforcements. The constant threat of sudden, violent explosions wore down the nerves of the German soldiers. Terrarea, which should have been a place of relative safety, became just as dangerous as the front line. Every bridge crossed was a gamble. Every rumbling train was a potential bomb. The Sappers had successfully turned the German army's greatest strength, its mobilitine, to a crippling weakness. The stories of these sappers are a powerful testament to the idea that victory in war isn't always decided by the largest armies or the biggest guns. It's often determined by ingenuity, courage, and the willingness to take incredible risks. These unsung heroes, working in the shadows, played a crucial role in grinding the German war machine to a halt. They understood that to defeat an enemy that relied on steel and speed, they had to become masters of wood, water, and time. By turning German assets into liabilities, they not only destroyed bridges, but also shattered the myth of the invincible Blitz. Their legacy is etched not in grand monuments, but in the twisted wreckage of steel and the disrupted timelines of an invasion that ultimately failed. Partly thanks to the quiet, deadly work of the Sappers. Thanks for watching. If you've found this piece of history fascinating, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives into the lesser-known stories of our past. See you in the next one.